Co-president James Gunn is taking the fate of the DC Universe into his own hands and making some very serious changes to the roster. Half of the beloved cast is gone, and fans aren't happy by the slightest bit. But there is one star whose place in this struggling franchise won't be touched. In this video, we'll be talking about how Margot Robbie isn't going anywhere in the messier-than-usual DCEU. First up, how do we know Robbie is staying? Well, we know this because she's with us in the video right now. Okay, that was a lie, but how cool would that be? An official statement regarding Margot's place in the DCEU hasn't yet been given, and it's unlikely that Gunn will specifically announce something like that anytime soon. But if you think we're going to think of it logically, it only makes sense to keep the biggest icon of the franchise. Back in 2016, when David Ayer directed The Suicide Squad, the Australian actress redefined the character to such an extent that pop culture was never the same again. Even comic books were inspired by the new look and decided to use that as their official artwork for her. Harley Quinn has been so popular that the studios even gave her a solo film in an animated TV show on HBO Max. Quinn has made an appearance in the same number of movies as Batman has, and that's saying something given the history of the two characters. Her solo movie featuring the Birds of Prey didn't do so well at the box office, but fans still adore the movie for being the most comic bookish thing to come out of this genre. James Gunn and Margot are really good friends too after working on The Suicide Squad, which gives her an advantage. Robbie isn't the only member of the Task Force X that's rumored to stay in the long run, which contradicts Gunn as the new president. Up next, the rumors about who's staying and who isn't. The fans realized that a lot of the cast members of the Snyderverse were getting axed while those who starred in the Suicide Squad were safe. They blew a fuse and were outraged. Gunn was accused of practicing nepotism by recasting over half of the stars, including Gal Gadot and Henry Cavill, two of the actors who adored their comic counterparts. We'll get into details about these two and the rest of the Justice League in just a second. John Cena is set to star in the season 2 of Peacemaker and will probably reprise the role in a future Suicide Squad sequel. If the Guardians of the Galaxy director ever plans to make another movie with these characters, Robbie and the rest of the cast, including Idris Elba, Viola Davis, and Daniela Melchior, will probably return as well. Not to mention Gunn's wife, Jennifer Holland, who plays the role of Amelia Harcourt in Peacemaker. She even had a little cameo in Black Adam, and let's just say not everyone is a fan of this character. Holland has received the most criticism in all of this because a lot of people just think James is keeping her on board out of favoritism and bias. But that's okay because we totally need another Felicity Smoak in the DCEU instead of Henry as Soups, right? That was sarcasm, by the way. Gunn ended up debunking these rumors and even called out fans for being uproarious and unkind, something he and Peter Safran were prepared for when taking on the new job as co-presidents. Let's talk about who's not part of the DCEU anymore. Ben Affleck, the man who was supposed to be the face of this potentially beautiful franchise, hung up the cape long before any of this mess began. This was back when the theatrical release of Justice League received negative reviews and Zack Snyder left the franchise due to creative differences. Emphasis on the last part because we all know how bad things were behind the scenes between Snyder and the studios. And that's beside the point. Affleck may return as a director for the future projects, which is something to look forward to. Patty Jenkins jumped ship due to the lack of creative freedom for her threequel to the Wonder Woman trilogy. In all honesty, this was one of the biggest surprises yet because everyone was certain Patty and Gal were set to be in this franchise for years to come. It also looks like Jason Momoa won't be picking up the trident after Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom because Gunn has other plans for the actor. Upon speculation, Momoa might be starring in LeBeau in the near future since he uploaded an announcement expressing his excitement for upcoming projects. Ezra Miller, on the other hand, needs to focus on their mental health before racing into the future of the franchise. Their Flash film is set to release later this year, and it may serve as a soft reboot for the entire universe. Ray Fisher has no plans to continue with DC after things went down with Joss Whedon back in 2017. Following up with Superman and Black Adam. If you told us years ago that Harley Quinn would be the last person from the Snyderverse to stay in the long run, we wouldn't believe a word you'd say. But Margot didn't dethrone just Henry Cavill, she's knocking out Dwayne Johnson in the competition too. The Rock has been talking about his passion project for over a decade and even fought hard for that Superman cameo in the post-credits, hinting at something big for for the future. Cavill also left The Witcher to pursue his role as Clark Kent, but after a month or two, it was announced that Gunn has other plans in mind for a Superman film. We just can't imagine what it must be like to be Henry right now. Poor guy. Black Adam fell a little too short at the box office and even often considered to have bombed. The movie didn't even hit $500 million, and if you've been working on something for around 15 years, yes, 15 years, you'd expect it to make way more than just $300 million. After a few meetings, Johnson also excited the franchise because it looks like there was no room for Telf Adam in the initial phase of the DCEU. Moving on to what Gunn's plan is. The new president of DC Films making all of these changes isn't completely randomized and biased. James has a plan, and it was part of his statement when he first appointed alongside Safran. The statement mentioned how the #1 priority is to give directors the creative freedom they deserve. This ended up backfiring after what happened with Patty and Dwayne with their respective projects. CEO David Zaslav wants quality media in both theatrical and small screen releases to be both entertaining and economically efficient. Hopefully this doesn't mean they'll give big movies like Superman a budget of under $100 million. Hey, the way the recession is hitting us along with how much money the company lost, we can only prepare for the worst. But the co-presidents have both had their fair share of involvement in this genre of movies. This is the only thing keeping DC fans sane because Guardians of the Galaxy and The Suicide Squad were both great films. While people who religiously believe in the Snyderverse think differently and resent anything that isn't according to the vision of their favorite director. Now for some of the fan reactions. The audience that watches comic book films is always divided into opposites where one hates what the other one loves. The majority of fans are optimistic about Gunn's leadership because they weren't fans of Snyder's initial vision that strayed from the usual superhero movie blueprint. A lot of them are actually happy that Cavill, Miller, Affleck, and the rest are gone because they want better, lighter versions of these characters. Zack gave these heroes a grounded atmosphere to work with, whereas movies like Man of Steel explored how Kal-El would fit into humanity with his powers and dealing with real emotions. But fans who like Marvel movies want hope, optimism, and fun tones for a character like Supes. Now that these people are getting what they want, after all, the other group of fans is extremely unhappy. With how things went down with Whedon in 2017, a lot of DCEU fans gave up on the franchise because they knew that there was no going back. Now, if we are talking about what happened with Snyder, Joss, and Warner Brothers, we wouldn't have time to talk about what the video was actually about. Coming up with the future of Harley Quinn in the franchise. Rumor has it that Margot Robbie will be in charge of some upcoming projects in the DCEU, specifically for her iconic character. There were talks of a Gotham City Sirens movie, but that never saw the light of day. There's no telling whether Quinn's character will be explored out of the Suicide Squad or not because that's totally up to Gunn's vision of the universe. For now, Margot is dealing with how Damien Chazelle's new Babylon and Baby bombing at the box office. She's also involved in Greta Gerwig's anticipated live-action Barbie movie that will be released later this year. Talk about an iconic trailer. Who knew you could use a doll to reference a cult classic from Stanley Kubrick? Only then will the Australian actress be completely available for the DC movies, and we're hoping James has booked her so he can finally kickstart the initial phase of the universe. Lastly, what does the future of the DCEU look like? We're hoping it looks like that huge S on Clark's chest since it stands for hope. As far as the last son of Krypton is concerned, Gunn plans on hiring a younger actor and discovering the character's life in his early years as a reporter. There are also talks for a LeBeau movie with the Aquaman lead starring as the titular character. Momoa might be leaving his fishy friends, but he'll also be saying hello to a lot of new acquaintances in space. It looks like what these co-presidents want the most is a world where continuity won't be an issue. We honestly don't know what the fate of Zachary Levi and the rest of the Shazam cast is since both Cavill and Johnson already left. Come on, we really wanted that huge crossover. Other than that, movies like Blue Beetle are still planned for a theatrical release later this year. Films like The Batman and the Joker from the wondrous minds of Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips remain in their own world, and honestly, we think it's for the best. Well, what do you think of the current state of the DCEU under Gunn's leadership? Let us know in the comments below. As always, leave a like and hit that subscribe button to see more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.